Working? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this panel on decentralized intelligence. AI is rapidly evolving, not just in capability, but in architecture as well. Until now, intelligence has largely been centralized in the hands of a few tech giants. But what happens when we combine AI with decentralization? What new models of collaboration, ownerships, and innovation emerge when intelligence becomes a distributed asset? Today, we will explore this from three lenses. One, the technical and philosophical foundation of decentralized AI. Two, the critical issues around data ownership, privacy, and infrastructure. And three, and finally, the economic and regulatory consequences of this new paradigm. So my name is Bernard Nicolai. Indeed, I'm passionate about finance and education. I lecture sustainable finance and fintech at the University of Brussels, Solvay Brussels School, and Paris Dauphine. And I'm a former banker. To help navigate this, we are joined here by an exceptional panel. I'm going to say a few words about each of you, but do not hesitate to say more after that. We've got Nick Carey. He is the co-founder and vice chairman at blockchain.com, a leading crypto finance house servicing tens of millions of consumers since 2011. We've got Alex Kinstler, CPO of Storacha, a decentralized hot storage built on IPFS and Filecoin. You will tell much more about this during the panel. Nicolas is based in London, and Alex is based in sunny Cyprus. We've got Marion Labouré, senior economist at Deutsche Bank, the leading German bank. Marion is senior economist and also lecturer at Harvard University. She is the author of Democratizing Finance, published by Harvard University Press. Marion is French and based in London. Welcome back to France. As a Belgian national, I'm just a guest here, always. We've got then Shaw Walters, the founder of ELISA Labs, and the creators of the ELISA OS agentic open source framework with a robust background in artificial intelligence and technology. So very happy to have you here. And last but not least, we've got Benjamin Minku, who is the co-founder of Multiverse X, which claims to be the world's most scalable blockchain.
Interesting, right?
Yeah. And you are also an investor in several companies relating to blockchain from a very long time. I'm curious whether you have tips relating to decentralized artificial intelligence.
We'll share.
Relating to that. Okay, let's dive in. And before jumping into the technical aspects, I would like to ask you, Marion, if I may, some questions relating to markets and technology. What's happening now? We've got tariffs, we've got geopolitics issues. This should have influence on technology. AI is technology, and decentralized AI, well, so if I may, let us cover this first.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for this question, a very topical one. And actually, quick answer, I would say technology is very correlated to what's happening these days in terms of geopolitics. So we've seen a lot of announcements in terms of tariff, including the last one from yesterday. And yes, there is a strong impact. If you look at the MAG 7, obviously stock market crashed, S&P, NASDAQ, both crashed as well. Now, if I look specifically at AI, I would say what's quite interesting to monitor in terms of the market is China versus the US. The US is the leading country in terms of IP, in terms of semiconductors. Another country to monitor is obviously Taiwan, because TSMC produces more than 50% of all semiconductors and more than 90% of the most advanced semiconductors. And the way I see semiconductors for AI, it's like the brain of technology. And another thing to monitor, and actually China mentioned it last week when they decided to reciprocate with tariff towards the US, they have also restricted the export of rare earth metals. And rare earth metals, I would see it as the vitamins of high tech, like think about vitamin C, vitamin D as well. You need a small quantity of vitamin for your body to function very well, and that's exactly the same for rare earth metal. You need a little bit in order to make sure that the technology is very efficient, very powerful, very quick. And we've seen a lot of tit-for-tat retaliation over the past few years between China having the monopoly on rare earth metals and the US controlling the IP of semiconductors, including last week.
Thank you very much for your insights. And more specifically, and relating to AI, what happens outside the United States, please?
So we've been talking a lot about the US, especially with OpenAI, which really emerged as the big leader in terms of artificial intelligence. But recently, since January, which seems very, very far away, given what happened recently, but we also had the release of DeepSeek in China. Pretty impressive what China managed to do with a smaller budget, much smaller than what the US did with OpenAI. Semiconductors which are less advanced, obviously, given that they don't have access to the most advanced semiconductors. And in terms of result, it's pretty interesting to see that they can achieve something as good as GPT. Another thing as well that we've seen is the release of deep research from OpenAI, which is even more interesting, powerful. I'm even more impressed when I see deep research from OpenAI. And outside that, to reply to your question, we've seen, so the US leading on it, China emerging as well as a very, very strong competitor. The UK has been doing fantastic work, and we shouldn't underestimate what DeepMind did. So it was acquired by Google a few years ago, but the UK has been leading on AI, if you look at history. And obviously, we have Mistral as well in France, given that we're in France, which is doing pretty well.
Thank you very much indeed. And the common characteristics of all the organizations you mentioned is that they are centralized. Basically. So now what about decentralization in AI? If I may show, how does decentralized AI differ from traditional AI models? Could you give us a definition?
We have a kind of interesting paradigm where I would say that centralization has become part of decentralization. And you have someone like Mark Zuckerberg saying, okay, we're going to open source Llama, the entire thing, the training recipes, how you do it, and you can use that. And the vast majority of the open, a decentralized compute that you can get today to run your own model, you're probably running Llama, which means, ironically, we are using Facebook technology, but they're also open sourcing it and enabling us to decentralize AI. And you got to think from Facebook's perspective, they're competing with OpenAI and Claude and these other companies that are not doing that. So for them, it's the best differentiation strategy. And they're getting all this mind share, all these developers. Now everyone doesn't hate Mark Zuckerberg anymore. They think he's a cool guy. Massive image change. Huge, huge effects for them. And Llama is suddenly now considered probably the best, the one that's about to come out might be the best model that's ever been released ever from anybody. So then there's obviously the decentralized side. I really like Noose Research. There's all other groups like Prime Intellect and a lot of other groups. I'm just going to name a few of the people I'm close to. Noose has been working on Psyche, which is like a distributed training algorithm. So anybody can come on, and it'll be they're just releasing this. It'll be like Solana Network. So anybody can come on and participate in a large model training. Prime Intellect, I think they just finished a 13 billion, 14 billion parameter model, fully decentralized training, and there's a bunch of this coming out. But we still haven't seen, the reality is Facebook has the data, and the data is how you make a great model. Data in a lot of GPUs, obviously. And we just haven't had that in decentralization, but we're starting to patchwork it together. I think it's super early days, though.
So super early days indeed. Although it's early days, what could be the advantages and challenges of what we can call then decentralizing intelligence. Maybe Benjamin, if you would like to add some perspective, but of course, Shaw and the other panelists do not hesitate to react. We've got lots of questions in our preparation for relating to that, but.
Sure. So I would say that maybe making the entire point a bit more concrete would change the entire conversation. For most of the people, if you think about things as they are right now, the state of things, it's very hard to see both the challenges and the opportunities. It's when you think about having, for instance, 8 billion people and maybe 10 billion agents, not very far from today, that you immediately start seeing how everything changes, how the infrastructure for accountability changes, how the infrastructure for coordination changes, how the infrastructure for settlement changes. And in fact, how will society look when the majority of transactions, the majority of interactions, the majority of exchanges are done by an alien type of intelligence that works and collaborates with us? I think that is definitely the most interesting type of question, because fortunes will be created for any number of those problems. Just the idea of serving billions of agents changes your perspective completely. It changes your perspective as to what you need in terms of scalability, in terms of demand, in terms of architectures. All around that, it changes your perspective on interfaces that would simplify things for the people, help them interact with these agents and so on. But then coordination and settlement are also really large problems. How do banks, for instance, change when the majority of their customers are agents? How do any number of other services like voting in a country, how does voting change when you basically can somehow Sibyl attack the voting mechanism? And maybe in the US you can do it right now in very counterintuitive ways. But all I'm saying is, I believe that the largest opportunity is in front of us when it comes to AI, and I'm not saying anything by saying that. It's very, very obvious that everything we've seen with the companies, such as NVIDIA and so on, is just the early signal of almost the entire world revamping to this type of agentic interaction with a completely new ecosystem. So frameworks, interfaces, and architectures that serve that will probably have to ensure that there's trust, because otherwise everything breaks. And this is why I think accountability will be probably one of the biggest challenges that we'll face, that we'll have to tackle compellingly in order to reach then coordination. Okay, we have trust, then how do we coordinate multi-agent system across complex tasks and goals and so on? And then, of course, settlement. Suppose that you have coordination, how do you settle some very difficult conversations, claims, and so on in this entire world? But I would say that during the next 6 to 12 months, we'll probably be shocked how much an agent will be able to do for us, and how fast it will evolve from the current point.
All right. Building on this, talking about challenges and opportunity, a challenge and opportunity is the algorithm. And Marion, when preparing, we said, well, what's the recipe for a good algorithm? And how can open source AI remain ethical and unbiased? So that's a question. And linked to that, I would like to ask Nick also about the conversion between blockchain and AI, because you said in the preparation that you are a blockchain guy, yeah? Not especially an AI guy, but I'm sure that you will see opportunities thanks to the conversion. So maybe Marion first, if I may, and then Nick.
Yeah, so on your question, is it possible to have an unbiased algorithm? I'm very skeptical about that, given that the algorithm is trained by available data, and data are resulting most of them from human beings, which are all biased, mostly. So I'm very skeptical about unbiased algorithm. And actually, you can see it like every AI research tool, all of them have their own bias. If you ask a question about history, if you ask a question about religion as well, I mean, they can come up with a slightly different answer, and you can realize that yes, there is a bias in that. In terms of successful algorithm, I'm not sure what you mean by successful exactly, but an algorithm is fed by data. The more data you have, the better your algorithm should be. And obviously, when you are training your algorithm with 1 billion country people living there, like I'm obviously thinking about China and India, you have more data to feed your algorithm. Like when you are training your algorithm in a smaller country like France, for example, it's not the same number of data you can collect. So the bigger your country is, the more data you have, I think the easier it is. So I'm not surprised that the algorithm is slightly better in an English-speaking country than in a small country where you have fewer people to train it.
All right, thank you very much. So, Nick, what about the conversion or the potential conversion between digital assets on the one hand, what you are delivering as a service provider since 2011, if I remember correctly, and now the emergence of AI agents that would be potentially decentralized as well?
So I think it's important to remind ourselves that Bitcoin and crypto brought the rebellion to the financial industry. And crypto and Bitcoin is going to bring a rebellion to these centralized, monolithic AI platforms. And it's really important that we do that. Monolithic thinking is extraordinarily dangerous. It leads to huge tariff walls. It leads to people being stuck in borders. It leads to all kinds of a lack of opportunity for human coordination. And so everything we've been doing in the crypto space and pioneered by Bitcoin has been about breaking down those things to invite a more open, fair, and accessible financial system for everybody. A more open, fair, and accessible form of learning and intelligence is also going to be something that's better for all humans in the world. And so some of the most important lessons learned by the digital currency and crypto space are now also being learned by the AI industry. And so while this is the blockchain week here in Paris, there's a little too much AI talk for my taste. But I do think it's relevant to our industry because at the end of the day, we can do some extraordinary things for our customers with this technology and these capabilities. And for me, anything that enables more financial freedom for people is something net beneficial and extremely valuable. So at blockchain.com, we've been around since 2011. We have over 100 million people in the world that have a non-custodial wallet, which means they have a vault in their pocket that enables them to send precious information and value to anybody else anywhere in the world instantly, basically for free. Now, in the future, we think it's going to be a passport to do all kinds of things, like hold precious medical information, identity objects, much more, including access to data that you can sell that you've personally generated out of your own human agency. And these are some of the beginning things that I think are quite exciting. We have a specialized team at blockchain.com on our engineering group that is merging AI capabilities both across all the functions in the company to make us more efficient business, and everybody should already be doing that. But more importantly, is about to pioneer some really exciting new feature sets for our customers. And so to me, the convergence between crypto and artificial intelligence really is just about developing new tools that make crypto more valuable for everybody and more useful for our customers. And so I'm very excited about those things, but foundationally, to me, I am concerned about the monolithic structure we have of the large tech companies today. To me, they look exactly like the too big to fail Wall Street banks in 2008. They do not always have the best interests of all of their consumers at heart. And having open source models, decentralized inference, and some of the things that were discussed as the stack that needs to be developed to make sure that these tool sets aren't weaponized against our human minds. We absolutely need decentralization and a plethora of options. And these ideas need to compete in the marketplace so that we get the best outcomes for everybody. Otherwise, I think we're going to be in for a much more dangerous future.
All right, so challenges indeed, and also opportunities to be seized thanks to the conversion. All right, so with this conversation as a backdrop, let's zoom in on the infrastructure layer. And Alex, you feel that it's for you, huh? Where AI meets data ownership, storage, and security. Who owns the data? How is it stored? And how can we ensure these systems are as open and transparent as the intelligence they support? So, first question, how does decentralized storage contribute to transparency, security as a service provider?
So we currently live in a environment of low trust in terms of data and information, as we've seen in the world. And up till now, we were kind of trusting these large corporations or cloud providers, that we might not even know, that they store our data um, in a trusted environment, right? And so far it was just like hope and trust that we have, right? And more and more this trust is broken, right? And especially with decentralized systems, you get incentivized actors, but you get also bad actors. So now basically you have to start shifting with your data and with your storage towards cryptographic guarantees, right? You need some sort of a guarantee that your data is still there, it hasn't been tampered with, right? IPFS has been around now since more than 10 years. Filecoin has been now around also since a long time. And so what it helps, for example, also like AI agents to do is it helps you to verify the data that is used for training, for example. It helps you to verify what model is being deployed at the moment. It helps you also to verify what input data was used. All that is done with content addressing, which is basically a fingerprint of the content that you're reading, right? And I think when we talk about these 8 billion agents, right, and they will basically act in a more and more complex environment where all these agents will collaborate. They will be hosted on multiple different networks, environments, whether centrally, decentrally, they will be available on multiple marketplaces, and they will collaborate to solve very complex tasks together, right? And you mentioned the coordination layer, right? So, and that complexity comes into place also for the data layer. How do now these agents exchange very specific targeted information between each other so that data is not abused? Especially if it's like user data. Let's say I'm entering something into ChatGPT today or any other kind of discourse LLM. And the profiling that's happening already today, I just went through my history for the last 2.5 years or 2 years and a couple of months using ChatGPT, and I'm shocked how much more they know about me compared to, let's say, traditional Google searches. Like the profiling that is happening already is scary a little bit. And so how does basically decentralized storage contribute to that also in terms of security is this data is typically chunked up and stored on multiple different kind of safes, right? As you can say, instead of like a big giant like vault that's sitting in the Google server, it's distributed on multiple different machines. So also like the attack vector is basically lower because you just have like a lot more like smaller kind of entities that you would hack here. And so security is often also like built by design into some of these systems.
Right, and very specifically, what could then be the biggest privacy and security risk, and how could decentralized networks mitigate them, maybe, or mitigate them more or not?
Yeah. Well, I guess so. In terms of privacy, what needs to change is a shift in the mindset of who owns the data. So I think traditionally the data was kind of stored and handed over to the centralized provider. It's kind of a little bit like, you get your keys for your apartment, but you're actually giving it to the landlord, and every time you want to enter, you ask him to open it for you, right? So that's how the traditional kind of cloud system works. Now it's more like you have the keys as the end user, right? And then you delegate and you allow basically a decentralized node to store that for you with an encrypted key that you only have, right? So you can really enforce end-to-end encryption. And that user can decide what can be done with their data. And you have a full auditable trail, especially with Storacia. We're using decentralized identifiers, like similar to Blue Sky, right? Where it's really about data portability, right? So you ensure data privacy by giving control back to the user and allowing them also to port that data. So the user not only is now a user of an application, but the user actually is entitled to manage their own storage, right? What do I want to do with it? Like if I don't trust, for example, Blue Sky at the moment, you can go to any other provider, you can move your data and you can host it yourself if you want, even on your server at home.
Addendum to the,
Oh, yes, please.
I think it's really important for us to separate when we think of like AI models and training versus like AI agents. And it's really the difference between like cloud and application, right? The reality is that if we took every single person who has a crypto wallet and we took all of their information, it wouldn't be a fraction of what we would need to train, even if we had all of it in one place. It's actually not enough to train a model, and it's not even a fraction of enough. But on the agent side, the amount of data that we have to store is extremely small because it's basically everything the agent knows and learns and wants to know about us. The amount of data that we need to train a generally intelligent model is a minimum of 2 trillion tokens, which is more than every person you've ever met will make in their entire lifetime times 1,000. It is way more data than we will. So I do think we should have a bit of a splash of cold water that a lot like. It takes a minimum of 10,000 GPUs, which each cost $2,000 to train a 8 billion parameter model that we use today, which is not even best in class. That amount of GPUs does not exist in the entire world of home consumers who could plug it into a network. So we are very far away on the replacing OpenAI at training models, like 10 years away. Now let's talk about the agent side. We are the closest to solving this problem. We're way closer than OpenAI. They have massive cultural moat problems. They have a technology, yes, there's technology moat. I think that's going away. What is not going away is cultural moat. OpenAI is never going to make Samantha from her. They're never going to make an agent that loves you, cares about you, gets to know you, falls in love with you, wants to do adult human things. They're not going to make AIs that are brave and willing to tell you the truth no matter what. They're not going to, they are implicitly biased because bias is part of what they're selling you. The other thing that we have to be realistic about is that we are not all going to have our own custom models unless we go local. All of us get our inference serverless, which means that there is one model served to all of us, and that's the only way to scale this compute. We think, okay, well, I'll have my model, you'll have your model, we'll all put it on the blockchain. That would be orders of magnitude more expensive than what we're doing today, and what we're doing today is already a loss leader. Every single time you press hello, hey, what's up in ChatGPT, that's 40 cents. They're actually losing money on every subscription they make, and sometimes orders of magnitude.
Thank you for insisting on the business models aspects, which anticipate the questions later, indeed. A last point relating to data and storage and the conversion between artificial intelligence and blockchain. How do wallets and encryption intersect with AI? So that's, I'm asking you, Nicolas, as you,
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are going to be a bunch of different use cases, but you'll have machine-to-machine payments. You'll have individuals that then authorize an agentic AI or a piece of software to perform activity for them. And all these computer systems are not going to be able to march down to Deutsche Bank, and set up a bank account. It's very likely, though, that they'll be able to set up a crypto wallet. In fact, they do that programmatically already. And with that, they can manage treasury and they can perform economic activity on behalf of a person or a set of instructions or feature sets. And so when you hear agentic AI, just think a piece of software performing activity that's useful, and you can give it all kinds of instructions if you desire to. So to me, a piece of a wallet infrastructure is obvious. It's just a piggy bank for an AI to go do all kinds of things. It might be, be your personal family CFO. It might be keeping your refrigerator stocked with your favorite vegetables, and much more. And so it's a critical piece of technology. If in the future we expect these things to perform a lot of economic activity, and I think everybody who is in this room is probably quite excited about that. Crypto layers are foundational in order to support basically wide-scale, worldwide machine-to-machine electronic payments. And so today, there's a lot of activity happening on the internet that's economic, but within, I expect, probably 3 to 5 years, the preponderance of economic activity on the internet will be performed by agentic AIs or computer systems paying for things between each other. And they'll definitely use crypto wallets to do that. But probably because of the convergence between crypto and TradFi, all the crypto companies in this room will be competing with our TradFi friends more aggressively than ever in the coming years. And so it's going to be a real fight. And I think on the end of the day, it'll probably cause, obviously there'll be some winners and losers, but I'm hopeful consumers will have the greatest benefits from all of this.
I will
Yes.
maybe just add one point, because I think this is the first point I was making. I think people generally underestimate the sheer scale of the number of agents that each and every human, or maybe some companies and so on, will want to have. And it will not be one-to-one. It's not like we'll stop at 8 billion agents and so on, but maybe tens of billions, hundreds of billions, trillions of agents that at the same time perform these things. I think also the opportunity by sheer scale compared to what we have today is going to dwarf the GDPs of countries and so on, in a way that makes the conversation very non-zero sum. There still will be a fight. And I think on the one hand, you have this fundamental, maybe agentic models and so on. And I think maybe in 30, 50 years, when people will look back, they'll look at blockchains much more as this trust machine or truth machine for the world, rather than the many detailed things that we're doing right now with simple applications applied. But in almost all the situations you were mentioning before, you want safety critical properties to be applied for you to have utmost transparency, verifiability, and tamper-proofness to really make these interactions with trust, and to also sleep at night. Because if you can't, then it's going to be a bit more tricky.
All right. Any other things to add relating to the specific discussion, show, or?
I have so many thoughts, but
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
I got 7 minutes. So.
Okay, very good. Then what about coming back to the big picture again? We started with Marion and what's happening in financial markets. Now, what about the economic and regulatory implications? First question, how will decentralized AI and data systems, as you explained, how will they reshape business and finance, or a portion of that? Alex, to start with?
Sure. Yeah, I can give it a go, but I'm sure there's like greater people at answering some of the questions. But so I think they're like, from, you know, I'm a little bit biased here. Obviously, I come from the decentralized infrastructure space, but I think there are like two trends that that I see, apart from, you know, many disruptive trends that AI generally has. So this is specifically about the decentralized AI portion. It's one, we had this DeepSeek moment, right, where suddenly basically a model got published that is like almost as performant as a closed model. I mean, Llama was around before, but suddenly, you know, hey, these guys, you know, sitting in a garage with apparently, you know, lower level GPUs could develop that.
Doubt
Doubt
that
it,
part,
exactly.
but
Yeah, doubt it for sure. Not gonna discuss this. But I think we had this DeepSeek moment that suddenly the community is like really jumping on board, and everyone is like getting on that wagon and developing, and I think it's just a boost for innovation, right? And I think this was super important. I mean, it's part of the strategic game here as well. It's like, you know, if we cannot compete and outcompete, then, you know, let's just make it public, you know, and everyone else will be probably faster than some closed company. I think that's one big trend that will accelerate basically innovation in that space, and which will impact like business models in multiple ways. And the second factor that I see here at the moment coming from infrastructure is that the data ownership model is shifting, right? And I think more and more people will get concerned actually with data privacy around AI, right? So people will want to own the data that they are actually like feeding in, right? And especially when agents like work in an autonomous way and share basically information of an end user. Not talking about the large training data, of course, but you still feed in like current up-to-date information, which, you know, your personal information to solve your own problems, right? And you want to have control how these agents who work independently with each other will actually share that data. So you want to have like an auditable trail that's going out there. And I think that users could get into a state where they're actually rewarded and like finally they get basically compensated for putting the data out there, right? So for example, if I have my Blue Sky account and I want some marketing agency to use my social profile data to market to me, right? I might want to get compensated, and you can actually have more business model which are really compensating the end users for giving that data to AI at the end of the day. And I think this will create like some pressure to be more transparent and also not just to consider basically secretly like utilizing your data like many big companies did in the background when they were training the models. And I think it will force companies to become more ethical actually and more transparent through that. And this is what I see as a trend also to changing business model.
Yeah, and the good news is that we get even 5 minutes more. And I was saying that at the beginning because there are so many challenges. So please elaborate on that, show.
Well, I mean, my last 6 months has been very strange. I was working on an open source framework for AI agents for a long time. I've been doing this for 5 years now, and before that I was a programmer for a long time. But once GPT-3. And I had done the traditional raise thing. I just was like really not, I did not want to go out and talk to 100 VCs to raise a round to convince them that my agents were the thing. I just wanted to go out and do it. So we started AI16Z, and we said we're going to work on autonomous investment agents and some things. And I'm not saying that AIs can invest, but we have a whole thing around that using community intelligence, collective intelligence. And that turned out to fund our entire thing. And so before I had gone traditional VCs and I had to convince them of my thesis, I just went to the people and I said, hey, this is my thesis. And suddenly we were, for a minute in the hype cycle, like it was enough. And that led us to having the runway to build like a truly open source, decentralized AI agent that's multi-agent. And we actually have like useful agents you can go and bring into your Discord or Slack. And this only happened because of crypto. And I think that what we need to, the biggest thing to me is that if you want to invest in AI today, you want to go invest in DeepSeek or OpenAI, good luck. Good luck. You don't have, there's no exposure. You have no chance. You have to be rich. You have to be accredited. You have to be a part of a small fraction of people in this country to have any chance to get anything out of this. And you're not gonna. And what's gonna happen is that 5 companies are gonna create all the agents, all the robots. They're gonna own all the value. And then they're gonna create UBI. So they're gonna tax those companies and then give all the rest of you money, which is basically the worst thing that could ever happen to humanity that I can think of. And we have to stop that at all costs. And the only way we stop that at all costs is by a bottom-up emergent model where we own the means of production. It is so important that we own the means of production. If we don't, we're all dead. We're all slaves, for sure, because they don't need us. But if we own it, we are all so rich, we don't have to work, we can enjoy our lives, we can pursue spirituality. Why am I here?
Yes. Thank you for... Yes, thank you for describing this as well. Marion, with a macro perspective, how can institutions and policymakers adapt relating to AI and decentralized AI?
How can they not adapt?
Aren't they always late?
They have to, and I think that there are probably like 2 trade-offs to consider is do you regulate or do you want to innovate? And I think it's probably like a big debate between Europe and the US. The US is pro-innovation, so regulation is quite weak. And Europe is pro-regulation, so we are very good at regulating, but probably less good at innovating. First trade-off as well that we should consider is privacy versus convenience. If you ask people if they care about privacy, I think everyone cares about privacy. But if you look at what people are doing, I would say convenience is always king. Most of us probably have a smartphone. Most of us probably have Google on our smartphone. Most of us have access to our emails. And I think we shouldn't underestimate convenience. And if we look at what countries are doing, I mean, it's very interesting. You have some countries which are like leading countries in terms of innovation. I'm thinking about in Europe, we have Estonia, who's been pioneering blockchain since early 2000. It's very impressive what they've been doing in terms of digital ID, online voting. You can do like many things online. They've been pioneering the blockchain technology since 2000. They got a cyber attack, by the way, and then they ended up doing their storage in Luxembourg. So it can happen, cyber attack. Singapore as well has been doing fantastic work with along the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Pretty good sandbox. Dubai as well has been quite keen to develop this blockchain technology and to be one of the leading countries. We have as well Switzerland, obviously, which is leading in terms of crypto asset and blockchain in Europe. So a few countries are, I mean, very good at managing this privacy versus convenience and regulation versus innovation trade-offs.
All right, time flies. I've got a last question for you, Nick, and then a question for all of you to make the conclusion. So, Nick, with your expertise in blockchain, are regulators ready today for autonomous AI transactions?
All right, autonomous AI transactions? Can you repeat the question?
Are regulators ready for autonomous AI transactions?
No, is the short answer. And we probably run out of time, but I think there's always a lag, right? And regulators were a bit laggy in responding to crypto. And in a lot of ways, they caused a bunch of adverse reactions. I think this is likely to be a similar situation, why it's incumbent so much on the entrepreneurs and innovators in the space to approach everything from a do no harm perspective to their customers and ultimately empower them. And to me, building with those principles first in your technologies and capabilities is key. And so Blockchain.com has been doing this since 2011, and we're looking forward to partnering with our customers to building a safe experience that's useful and valuable for them in the next decade.
I want to add to that. I really don't think that we're considering some of the ramifications of custody here. Like, imagine this happens every day. I get hacked and I lose my wallet, and somebody starts using my wallet, spending all my money and stuff. Do I have to go pay taxes on that? Like,
Yes, obviously.
But it was
in
obviously
Europe.
stolen
only
from
in Europe.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying? Like, so let's say somebody eventually acquires my private key, and 10 years down the road starts using it. Is it mine? Was it ever mine? I just happen to have a private key that associates to a public key. And so now let's take this to like, well, I just had some agent say some stuff on my Twitter and do some stuff, and like that really pissed off the SEC, and I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It was my agent. So I think we're very quick, especially in the things you say online or your agent says on your behalf, or this is something I've personally had to like deal with a lot because I was automating my account. So I think that we, like, lawmakers aren't even ready for where crypto is at, of how do we deal with custody? How do we deal with taxing the millions of 15-year-olds with phantom wallets? How do we, like, they are not even remotely ready for the thing that's already here, let alone the thing that's coming. And we have people doing crazy stuff with AI agents and wallets already, like, buying and selling and doing every possible thing and racking up large tax bills and auto trading and everything. And nobody has, we're just assuming that they're so far behind that they don't even know how to have this conversation.
We'll just have to ask the Terminal of Truths what it thinks.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, I mean, what happens when the Terminal of Truth says, like, oh, well, the SEC should prosecute? We're like, well, why is he saying anything about his price? And so what happens when an agent starts doing things that would break the Howey test, for example?
Oh, this conversation should last forever.
Yeah.
But after the panel, I'm sure. So, a last question for all of you, please. Try to be short. In terms of a vision and a business model disruption or innovation, where is the biggest business model in disruption? What is for you the biggest disruption in the coming 3 to 5 years? We said we were very early in decentralized AI. What will happen? Tell me.
I would say that by and large, AI is an additive technology, not a disruptive technology. Disruptive technologies usually enable new people to take on the incumbents. Here, all the incumbents are getting the technology for free. The one part where I see this changing is the cultural moat of all of the AI companies don't want to engage with their enemies' social media. So Meta's not going to make Twitter bots, Twitter's not going to make Facebook bots. And basically, like, those of us on the outside who don't have the cultural reservations and don't have the corporate safety net can just kind of YOLO this stuff. And we're putting agents, which are actually like intelligent mini applications, into the social layer of people's Twitter, Telegram, Discord, Slack, and actually changing the way that they work. And I think that we have advantage of this because the other people who could change the way they work, Microsoft and Facebook, have so much cultural moat preventing them from doing that. They're on the outside of the moat in this case.
All right, Benjamin?
I think the the scale that is going to become apparent during the next months in terms of necessities with respect to accountability, necessities with respect to coordination, and necessities with respect to settlement would make it clear that you'll need architectures that are so far advanced from the things that seem decent right now. And I see a lot of blockchains architectures that exist, but just because you've not tested them to the limit, you've not seen what they're capable of. So with these needs, blockchain will regain a completely different value, because without it, you'll not be able to solve some of these fundamental problems that you'll need to solve in order to unlock trillions of dollars in value.
All right. Marion?
I would probably like to add of what you said, monitor very closely what's going on in terms of macroeconomic. I mean, we've seen a lot since January, and I don't think it's the end, by the way. Days are flying these days, and I would very carefully monitor what's going on in terms of regulation, what's going on in terms of the US versus China relationship, in terms of tech war, in terms of trade war, in terms of financial war. And in terms of restrictions on semiconductors as well, which is key for AI and rare earth metals.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, in terms of disruption, and not talking about decentralized AI, but I think AI in general, if we look at the speed of innovation, like from industrial revolution to information revolution, now to the agentic revolution, I think we will have like another 100x basically of speed of innovation, right, across all areas that we see, whether it's, developing new materials, right, that are done by AI agents, or if it's automatic coding, right? So, and I think we're pretty close to like writing your own code. Like I told my team, for example, you have to consider that, we've got a new employee and that's this automatic code writer, and in a year's time, he has to be able to write code himself, right? So I think that's where the disruption will be like across the board generally. And again, like you said, disruption doesn't necessarily mean that we lose jobs or anything. It's more like increase of speed of innovation. So it means we have to all adjust and we have to change how we do our jobs today and potentially become more productive through AI.
It's all of those things combined, and it's better, cheaper, faster, and it's going to lead to extraordinary wealth creation. And I think there'll be opportunities for millions and millions of entrepreneurs to participate in this economy with tools that make them more successful than any other time in human history. So I honestly believe we have a lot to be optimistic for, and it's not a coincidence these technologies are emerging at the same time, which is why we're talking about them on the panel today. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our panelists. You wanted to add something?
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Nick, Alex, Marion, Benjamin, and Sho, for helping us look ahead, because that's key. I would say let's keep questioning, building and collaborating, because the future of intelligence belongs to those who design it together. And thank you very much to all of you for participating. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Merci.